Sorry, I need to turn my own mic on today. Calling the meeting to order for Thursday, March 23rd, Planning and Zoning and Agriculture Committee. I'm filling in for Mr. Tripp, who would be filling in for Mr. Olthoff. So it made it all the way down to me. You guys win. No, I'm just kidding. So if we could get a roll call, please.
Mr. Olthoff, Mr. Tripp, Mr. Washington, Mr. Tholen, Ms. Polk, Mr. Mulcahy, Mr. Byrne, Mr. Hildebrand, Mr. Einfeld, Mr. Payton, Ms. Peters, Ms. Dunbar, Mr. Ritter, Mr. Wheeler,
Present.
Mr. Lear. We have a quorum.
I don't have any public comment this morning. I guess we'll go approval of the minutes. Approval of the 2/23/17 minutes. Need a motion to approve. Mr. Washington, second. Mr. Hildebrand, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. The billing report, February 2017.
Good morning. Good morning. In your packet, you'll find the February 2017 building report. In February, we had a total permits of 35 with a valuation of $716,641 and collected fees of $6,884. Total fees for the month were $11,418, and we had issued a total of 35 that permits issued. I looked at those numbers. It seemed a little low to me, so I compared them to last year, and we are right in the same amounts for February. Last year we had $11,222, so we're only a couple $100 off from last year's numbers.
So I guess I need a motion to approve the billing report. Mr. Mulcahy, second. Ms. Polk, any questions for Dell on that? Alrighty, got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're going to go to the transportation report. And at the very beginning, I'll just mention here, I apologize, I should have said it before. We're going to be striking all of number 7, the zoning cases that we were going to be reviewing because the newspaper did not publish those, so that's part of the requirement. So we held the meetings and then found out afterwards that the newspaper did not publish our request to be published. So those will come back next month. I think they had to have a separate set of hearings on those.
Yeah, the new zoning board hearing date will be April 17th.
Okay. So we'll address that at a later time. So on the transportation report, Jeff will take over on that.
Good morning, everyone. At the beginning of each year, we send out letters to all the transportation providers in the area. It's a notice of opportunity for anyone who's interested in providing a rural transit service in our county. We got one submission back, and that was from Showbus, who is currently our transportation provider. They've been our provider since 1999. The main service that we provide, we do our demand response service, where anyone who's interested in the rural area call Showbus about 24 hours in advance, schedules a ride, and they can come into town, go everywhere they need to, and then Showbus will take them back home at the end of the day. The fares for that are $4. We also have our Moments Deviated Fixed Route Service, which is our commuter service between Kankakee and Moments. Fares for that is $1 each way, so $2 round trip. The first bus for that leaves at 4 a.m. and the last bus leaves Kankakee at 5 p.m. So that service has been very instrumental for workers commuting between Moments and Kankakee. Showbus also provides special medical trips, but they're fairly few and far in between because they are relatively expensive. It's basically sending a bus out for one individual for whatever they need. So when those trips are required, they are served, but they are relatively few. The majority of funding comes from 2 grants that we receive. We receive federal funds from the FTA for rural transit, which is a Section 5311. We also receive downstate operating assistance funds from the state of Illinois. And this is the application to submit to them to provide that service. And if anyone wants copies of these, paper or electronic, you are more than welcome to send us an email. We'll gladly send them out to you. The grant amount from FTA is for $166,698, and the amount for the downstate operating assistance from the state is $960,800. There is local match involved, which comes from a handful of different places. Various townships throughout the county provide donations, which count as a local match, which draws down those federal and state dollars. Service contracts that ShowBus has with various social service agencies in the county also count as a local match, and that draws down those federal and state dollars. Lastly, last year was the first year in several years that the county has budgeted a local match as part of the budget, and we budgeted $15,000, and that was budgeted with the current fiscal year. And then I apologize if this starts to get a little confusing, but I want to make sure everybody understands, is that $15,000 budgeted would be for the transit fiscal year, which is on the state's fiscal year, ends June 30th. And so we would have to be looking at next year's budget for the local match that we would come up with for this application today. And I think we would try to keep that at $15,000 if possible. By continuing to provide the local match, it shows support and commitment to the state that we really do value our rural transit service. The other major concern is that in any given year, if the state legislature wanted to, they could change what the caps are for transit service. So right now, each year they're required to increase our downstate operating assistance by 10%. So every year that goes up. And right now we're only using about half of that just because we don't have enough service contracts or local match to increase service to other areas of the county or underserved areas of the county. So that is one concern of the future. That could be an issue, because if we were ever to expand services, that could be prohibitive if we don't have additional grant funds to come in. Just some things about the previous fiscal year. We did serve 32,193 rides across all our service, and I believe a little bit over half was on the Moments commuter service, which Kankakee County has the highest number of work-related trips out of ShowBus's 7-county area. So I think that's worth noting. So I'm asking for approval to continue and submit these applications, the Section 5310, or I'm sorry, Section 5311, the FTA fund, and the Downstate Operating Assistance Grant Fund.
Thank you. I guess first, can I get a motion to approve? Mr. Washington, motion second for Mr. Tholen, and then a question from Mr. Washington. Just a moment, please. Okay.
On the fixed route to Moments, why is it just $1?
That's just what the fare was set at. Fares are up to the county board because this is your service, but it's always been $1 each way or $2 round trip. I think that's from when it started. One thing to note about fare is fare does not count as local match, so that does not draw down additional state or federal funds. It basically comes off the top of operating expenses. So it isn't necessarily a viable solution to try and increase local match. It doesn't
That's
count
what
in that
I'm
way.
asking.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a good question, though. Any other questions about this?
And Laura is also here from ShowBus. If anyone had questions for her, I'd like to mention that.
The one thing I want to make sure of this, based on the state's fiscal, this 15,000, when would that be due? It would be in the after June of this year. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, after June. From what I understand, it would just have to be, ShowBus would have to receive it by the time that they have their audit, which would be, I believe last year it was September or October, and it just can't be outstanding on their workbooks.
Okay, and then we have already put this in the budget
Yes.
last year.
Yes.
Because I remember those meetings where we talked about this, that we would have to have that. So I just remind
Yes.
everybody, it may be in the budget right now. If we had to come up with it, that cash flow would be an issue.
Right.
Since we have the ability to wait till July,
Yes.
I think that's relevant in the conversation. So, so we have a motion, Mr. Hildebrand. Just a moment, please.
Thank you. Just a quick question. You said like on the $15,000 that we budgeted, the townships might contribute to,
Yes,
to that 15?
that's all in addition to, yeah. The townships have been contributing for quite some time. The county used to pay a local match. Going back, I have a sheet that goes back as far as 2004. And when the state introduced the Downstate Operating Assistance Program, from what I understand, the operating expenses, it basically, we weren't spending enough at that point in time that we had to come up with a local share. I think that's how it worked. But basically, we didn't have a local share for about 5 or 6 years, starting in fiscal year 2014 and 15. The local match that the county did not pay, Showbus actually came up with on our behalf. And so once some of the funds that we had banked up prior to the 2008-2009, when that kind of ran out, that was when we had to start looking for local match again from the county. In the past, we've paid anywhere between $20,000 to $37,000, and so we're just trying to. Everyone knows we have budget issues, but if we can start getting something in the budget, that's definitely worth noting.
What are some of the ways that we can, beyond our own devices, access local match? What are some of the other ways that we can?
The two big ones, we are trying to seek out an additional service contract with a social service agency. However, they've been in union negotiations the last couple of years, and so we don't want to even have any type of apparent interference with that. So we're waiting for those to be completed. The other is that eventually we're very hopeful that IDOT will do a call for projects for what is called intercity service. That's another type of FTA funding source. That would be in addition to the already funds that we receive from FTA, and one or both of those alone could absolve the county of needing a local match in the future. But it's anyone's guess as to when IDOT will do that call of projects. So we've been waiting a couple of years on that, and we're continuing to wait. And the same thing with the union negotiations. No one knows how long those could ever take.
Sure.
So, but
Is
those
there any other mechanisms? Any I want to say advertising on buses. Employers that may benefit their employees taking this route. I mean,
those are things we can look into. We also just want to make sure that there's not any type of, we don't want to think that there's any type of, I don't want to say lobbying, but if we were to go to private employers or anything like that, I believe we can, but that's something that we can certainly look into. Mm-hmm. Advertising, I know that's been mentioned. I don't know how that falls into the cost of getting that set up versus the revenue it generates, but that's also something that we could look into.
It might be relevant if we increase the local match. Does that allow us to expand service? I guess if we're able to provide more of a local match, does that allow us to access other funds?
Yes, it does.
Now you see where I'm going with that as a committee. We might be able to do more things if we can find some support from some of the, whether it's employers, whether it's people that want to have signs on the side of the bus. In here. Sorry, I need a longer microphone, I think, or I need to get shorter. How's this? So if we can access, whether it's employers, whether it's advertisers that want to do bus wraps and things like that, it would allow us to expand the service. We can't obviously do it on our own is where I'm going with that. So this $15,000 is very minimal to be able to help those residents who do need to access their jobs. This is their only mode of transportation. So since it is in the budget, we have a motion and a second. If nobody has any more questions, we would have to do a roll call. So are we good?
Just a clarifying point. We do
Yeah.
have it in the budget for the year we're in, but we
Right.
would have to
We'd have to do it again next year.
for next year. Yes.
Yes, exactly. We'll
Okay.
tackle that when that time
Okay,
comes.
okay.
Yeah. All righty. If I can get a roll call, please.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Tholen? Ms. Polk? Mr. Mulcahy? Mr. Hildebrand?
Aye.
Mr. Payton? Ms. Dunbar? Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And just to clarify, I want to make sure, because I apologize, I didn't catch this on the front end. That was a motion to combine and approve the two together, because I do not have the resolution here in front of me. I have your letter. Or,
Yes, the memo. Yeah.
the memo.
Yes.
Okay.
We haven't had a resolution yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what that motion was to combine both the FTA Section 5311 application and the Illinois Downstate Operating Assistance Program, correct?
I believe so.
Okay.
I think we'd have to
That's
listen
what I
back to
wanna
what the
clarify
original
when
motion
when
was.
we send it over to the state's attorney. I just want to make sure, because that was all read at the same time.
Okay.
All right, so I just want to clarify when we send it over, that's what we're doing. Unless there's any problems with that, we can vote separately. I just want to make sure with the committee. We good? Okay.
Yeah, this was the first year that they actually separated them out, and that just has to do with how the state's issuing their grants now.
Okay.
In the past, it always has been one application.
Sounds familiar. So do you want to move on to the purchase and service agreement?
Yes. The purchase of service agreement. Like I said, I just got these on my desk yesterday, and I apologize for not having them. It's much smaller than the grant application. Anybody who would like a copy of this is more than willing to receive one, either electronic or paper. This is just the agreement, like every year in the past that we have with Showbus, that they will be providing transit service for us for the upcoming fiscal year.
Any of the details, cost, scope?
The cost and scope, essentially they provide service. They are, we have what is called a pass-through relationship with them, which FTA allows because they are a non-for-profit organization. So they are essentially acting on behalf of Kankakee County. So when it comes to the record keeping and finances, they are acting on our behalf. So they are able to do all of the requisitions and pay requests to the to IDOT. It outlines the local match. Actually, I don't know if it has the local match in here. That's usually all in the budget. It refers to the budget, but it has the grant amounts in there. It's essentially the same as what we've done all years prior.
Sure. And this is for mainly the new members on the committee.
Yes.
That need to understand what
Right.
we're doing. So we've seen this before. Is there a cost tied to what we're moving forward with right now on our side?
On this, I don't believe there is. I don't
didn't think so, but I
believe
wanna
it
make
calls
sure.
for one written out in the purchase of service. All that would be tied to the Downstate Operating Assistance Program grant and the Section 5311 FTA grant.
Okay. All right. So this is mainly just allows them to act on our behalf. If that wasn't clear, I want to make
And
sure.
provide service,
Yeah, and
yes.
provide the service because they're the middle entity between us and the actual provider. So, or the rider, should I say. So that being said, we don't need is there a motion to accept? Mr. Tholen, second. Ms. Dunbar. Any questions? We can do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All righty, moving on. We are going to, again, skip all of number 7. And Dell had something as far as the planning department goes.
We received a notice from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, and I provided a response letter from Waste Management in your packet. Waste Management has applied to modify their permit for the landfill that's closed down in Otto Township. There are 3 items on their list that they're intending to modify on their closing plan. One is to reduce the number of monitoring wells from 4 to 2, which is in line with the state statute. It allows the reduction after 5 years of monitoring when it's been demonstrated that the effectiveness has not been compromised. The second one is that they want to correct a typographical error in attachment B of the permit. Apparently the an entry for dissolved nitrogen ammonia was placed in the wrong location in the report. And the third one is the updates to the construction quality assurance plan to accommodate situations that are typical of a closed facility. It's my understanding that the rules for this plan were written for an operating facility and do not necessarily work for activities at the closed site. We did have the state's attorney look into this, and they did say that what they are doing is in line with the state statute. So it's really more for your information, let you know what's going on. You can go to the IEPA's website if you want more information, and I do have a more in-depth report if you'd like to look at it.
Any questions? The committee? The one question I wanted to make sure of is this normal? Does this always happen? Is this the way that it goes? Because this is our first closed landfill, if you will, that in the modern era. So I wanted to make sure that this wasn't something that was strange and foreign, and it falls within what normally happens in this situation. They go from more constant monitoring to after they've established a baseline of what they can expect. They're into a situation where they go to the schedule that they're going to move to now. So once we ascertain that, talk to the state's attorney's office, I was just comfortable saying, yeah, okay, we don't have really an issue. And if there ever is an issue, we'll know. So, unless there's no other questions? Okay. Moving forward, old business. This is really, I would say, more new business. It's just more informational. The city of Kankakee has it's their community development agency has a lead-based paint hazard control program. Basically, they access federal funds. People who have lead on their windowsills or lead in their house and things like that, they can access assistance to be replace the lead covered if it's paint on the outside of the house, that kind of stuff. And what they wanted to do is they get a grant for this every year. They have to apply, and when they applied this year, they wanted to open this up to the entire county and say, if it's a rural area, even to the municipalities with in the county, they are opening up to them as well. So when they had to put this application in was last week. Cliff Cross got a hold of me and asked if we would at least sign on a memorandum of understanding that we're on board with this too, as long as the county doesn't have either the people or the money to administer this. So as long as the city was going to be the ones that everybody would apply through, then that's fine with us. We'll get a copy of the paperwork just so we know what's going on, but we don't have the horses to run that race, so to speak. So I just want to make sure that everybody here knew that I had to act by last week to sign on with the MOU so they could get their application in time. But I acted as such without the commitment of any funds or resources from the county. So I thought it was a good thing for the citizens to be able to access that, especially some of our rural farmhouses and things like that. The young baby gets high lead, that's one of the criteria. Actually, I think the health department looks at that kind of stuff, and then they're able to address that if they qualify in a certain income threshold. So if there's any questions, please let me know. Mr. Washington.
Will we get frequent reports and information about how the program is going?
Yes, they did say that when this happens, they're going to let us know. They're going to, we're going to this location in the rural county, and you have this many. We'll have access to the information. The key is that we just don't have to monitor or go there ourselves.
Right.
That's just, we don't have that ability. So, any other questions? All right, moving on from that. New business. Dell had something for new business. Yes, Mr. Lear.
One bit of old business. I wanted to check with Dell. Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. When will the Regional Planning Commission start work on the solid waste statistics? That was part of what was referred to in the February meeting.
It will be on their agenda at their April 13th meeting. So
And do
we'll
you have
start
an
an initial discussion and go from there as to who's going to work out who's doing what and what kind
do you
of
have an
timeline.
estimated completion date?
No.
Not as of yet, but I would have to guess we're looking at 4 to 6 months.
Thank you.
At least.
This information is not easy to come by. So it does take some work and repetitive calls and written requests and things like that to be able to find out some of the details that we're looking for. And that to kind of bridge on that, I want to remind board members, if you want to be part of these, because we have openings on this commission and others, I need to get the application in to put everybody in the funnel. Because there are some boards that we're excluded from. We can only have certain numbers of people on, other reasons, but the Regional Planning Commission,
Limited to
I
two,
think we're limited to two.
and we have to, I believe.
Yeah, and we have to on that one, but there are other opportunities out there. So I just want to make sure everybody knew the process, in case you want to be part of that. So right now, we do have 2 members on regional planning. I mean, so that is full, but there are other things. So you had something else on new business?
I do. For some reason, it got left off the agenda. It's another letter from the IEPA. Should be in your packet. It concerns a request for a permit from Bungie Milling for a federally enforceable state operating permit. And it's just a letter stating that if we'd like to be further informed by this, to get ourselves put on their mailing list. The permit would be in compliance with the Clean Air Act, and that is what is requiring them to file for the permit. So in actuality, the permit would limit how much air particles the corn milling process could put into the air, which they are not, my understanding is they are not limited at this time.
So this
So
is just a
it's just for your
notification.
information,
Yeah,
yes.
there's nothing, no action, nothing
No,
we
but
need
if
to
you'd
do.
like to know more about it, there's a email address and a phone number on the bottom. You can contact the IEPA and get on the list. I am on the list, so.
And this is the former J.R. Short milling operation?
Right.
Yes.
Location? Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. Any questions? All right, that being the case, I guess, motion to adjourn. Mr. Tolan, Ms. Dunbar, are those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Have a great day.